You really don't care what people think anymore.
I care what you think, he said. That answer silenced her for a moment.
He leaned forward. I talked to the board again. I told them I'm taking a leave. Stepping back from the spotlight for a while.
Her brows lifted.
They agreed. Not happily, but they can't stop me. It's in the bylaws. Tasha blinked. You're walking away from your company. Just for now. It'll survive. And I need the space. Not for you. For me to figure out who I am when I'm not answering to a brand. She looked at him differently now. You really mean that? Yes. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't empty.
It was full of trust, of unspoken things, of the fear they both carried and the courage to sit with it. Then Tasha spoke, voice quiet.
Jalen called you the man with the nice voice.
He said he dreamed you were his daddy.
Malik blinked, startled.
He's never said that about anyone before, she added.
He doesn't even know what a real dad is supposed to look like. Malik looked down at his coffee, swirling the spoon. I don't know how to be one. But I know I would have given anything to have someone like you fighting for me as a kid. Tasha swallowed. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know what he feels. He looked up at her. And what about you? What do you feel? Her breath caught. Honesty was hard, but lying would be worse.
I'm tired of doing this alone, she said.
But I'm terrified of needing someone. Malik reached across the table, palm up.
You don't have to do it alone, he said. But I'll never make you need me. I'll just be here.
If you want me.
She stared at his hand.
Then, slowly, she placed hers in his.
Later, as she walked him out, a photographer across the street snapped a picture.
Neither of them looked away. This time, it wasn't scandal. It wasn't shame. It was choice.
Inside, Carl watched from behind the counter. He didn't say anything, but when Tasha returned, he handed her a fresh mug of coffee and a small smile.
You've got grit, girl, he said. She nodded. It's the only thing that kept me standing.
As the bell jingled again, and new customers walked in, Tasha tied her apron tighter.
Life was still messy, still uncertain, but she was done hiding.
The evening air in Bronzeville carried a damp chill, the kind that clung to the skin and crept into your bones if you sat still too long. But the porch light outside Malik's childhood home glowed softly against the dark. It flickered every now and then, a little glitch that no one had bothered to fix.
Like so many things in the neighborhood.
Tasha sat on the front steps, her hands wrapped around a cup of peppermint tea.
Malik was inside showing Jalen his old comic books in the den.
Every few minutes, she could hear her son's laughter bubble through the cracked window, light, free, the sound of healing. It steadied her more than she realized. The invitation had come casually.
Let me show you where I came from, Malik had said. And somehow, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like trust.
She'd expected a mansion or some penthouse. But instead, they were here in the brick two-flat his mother had once rented, now owned by Malik himself, but kept nearly untouched out of memory. He said he came back when he needed to remember what mattered. The porch creaked as Malik stepped out, holding two thick blankets.
You okay?
He asked, sitting beside her.
I am, she replied. More than I've been in a while. He handed her a blanket. You looked peaceful. Didn't want to break it. They sat quietly watching the neighborhood settle into sleep. Lights clicked off one by one. A cat darted across the street.
Somewhere a siren howled faintly in the distance.
This is where I learned to fight, Malik said, voice low.
Not with fists, with will, with silence, with dignity.
Tasha glanced at him. You ever come back here when things get hard?
Every time, he said.
This porch raised me.
My mom would sit out here every night after her shift.
Some nights we ate dinner on these steps because we couldn't keep the lights on inside. Tasha smiled softly. It's humbling, isn't it? How far we climb only to need what we had at the bottom. Malik nodded. Sometimes success makes you forget what real strength looks like. They fell into silence again.
The porch light flickered twice more.
Jalen's doing better, Malik offered. His voice doesn't wheeze anymore. It's the meds, Tasha said.
And the prayers, and maybe the company.
Malik looked over. Honor is you. Honor is you too. A beat passed.
You think about the foundation? He asked.
She exhaled. I've thought about nothing else.
And I want in, but not as a face, not as your story.
If I do this, it's because I believe in it. That's all I've ever wanted, Malik said.
Someone who doesn't smile for the cameras but rolls up their sleeves.
She smiled. Then get ready, Mr. Jordan. I've got ideas. I was counting on it.
They chuckled. A soft breeze drifted by. The porch light buzzed.
Then Tasha said, Malik, what are we doing?
He turned, confused.
What do you mean? You and me, she said. This closeness? Is it real, or are we two survivors leaning on each other because no one else was there? Malik didn't answer immediately. He looked out over the street.
Considering I don't know everything, he said slowly.
But I know this doesn't feel temporary. I've had temporary. I've dated women who wanted the image, the story.
This, what we're building, it scares me, but not because it's wrong.
Because it's true. She nodded. I'm scared too. I'd be worried if you weren't. They laughed again, quietly.
Then he reached for her hand.
She let him take it. Inside, Jalen had fallen asleep on the couch.
A comic book draped across his chest. Tasha carried him to the guest room, tucking him in with a tenderness only mothers possess. She kissed his forehead, brushing a curl from his brow, then turned off the light. When she returned to the porch, Malik had put on jazz. A record, yes, a real one, was spinning in the small player tucked beside the door. I didn't peg you for Coltrane, she teased. I didn't peg you for someone who'd drink tea on a porch like this, he replied. They danced slowly, barefoot. No cameras, no audience, just the music and the hush of the night. And the shared breath between two people who had lived through storms. As the final note faded into the silence, Tasha whispered, whatever comes next, we face it together. Malik nodded. Together. Above them, the porch light finally steadied. Just a little glow, but enough to light the way forward. The office Malik had once avoided now buzzed with tension. His name had been stripped from the lobby plaque that bore Jordan MedTech HQ. And the corner suite he'd once commanded was now occupied by interim leadership. But Malik wasn't here for power anymore. He was here for war. Quiet, strategic war. Tasha stood beside him, sharp in a navy blazer she'd borrowed from a friend and slightly too big heels that clicked confidently on the marble floor. She was no longer just the mother of a sick boy. She was the co-founder of something new. And today they were facing the board. They'll try to discredit you, Malik whispered as they waited outside the boardroom. They'll say you're unqualified, that this is emotional bias. Tasha lifted her chin. Let them. I've walked through worse doors than this. He smiled. I know. The doors opened. Inside, 12 men and women, mostly white, mostly over 50, sat behind a long, cold table. At the center was Leon Radcliffe, chairman and longtime guardian of Jordan MedTech's profit-driven policies. Tasha Williams, he said without a smile. And Mr. Jordan, I hope this is brief. Tasha stepped forward. That depends. Are you here to listen or just pretend to? A few board members shifted, surprised. Leon didn't flinch. We're here to discuss your proposal and Mr. Jordan's recent deviations from protocol. Malik interjected. Let's start with the proposal. The Community Pulse Foundation, funded by private capital, using tech developed right here to provide real-time emergency care to underserved neighborhoods. Leon raised an eyebrow. And you expect us to approve branding resources for a passion?
Passion project based on a scandal? Tasha leaned in. You call it a scandal. I call it a warning.
A mother shouldn't have to scream in a hospital lobby for her child to breathe.
But she did, and you all saw it. More, she continued.
You built $1 billion company on the promise of health access.
But what good is access when no one's listening? Leon shifted.
Miss Williams, with respect, you have no experience in policy or health innovation. And yet, she said, I had the clarity to get my son help when systems failed.
I have lived what your charts can't measure. That's worth something. Malik added.
She's not here to replace your data.
She's here to give it soul. Silence. Then Leon leaned back. You're emotional, both of you. That's dangerous in business.
No, Tasha replied.
What's dangerous is pretending numbers are more real than people.
By the time they left the room, the board had not approved the foundation, but they hadn't denied it either.
It would go to vote next month. Malik called that progress.
Tasha called it delay, but neither of them walked away discouraged. Outside the building, reporters were waiting.
Microphones, cameras, rapid-fire questions. Mr. Jordan, are you still in control of the company? Miss Williams, are you romantically involved with Malik Jordan? Is this all a PR move to salvage your image? Tasha stopped. She looked straight into a camera.
I didn't ask for any of this, she said. But I won't apologize for surviving, and I won't be quiet just because it makes people uncomfortable. Then she walked straight through the crowd.
That evening, they returned to Malik's place. Not the penthouse downtown, but a small loft on the south side, one he'd never shown anyone before.
It had bookshelves packed with Baldwin and Bell hooks, old vinyl records, and photos of his mother that had never been touched by public relations hands.
Why this place? Tasha asked as she walked inside.
It's where I come when I want to remember who I was before the cameras, he said. Jalen was already curled on the couch watching a nature documentary with popcorn in hand. I told him we'd keep tonight simple, Malik said.
No meetings, just peace.
Tasha sat beside her son, pulling him close.
He leaned into her without hesitation. You think we're going to win? She asked Malik softly.
I think we already did, he replied. She tilted her head.
How? You said what they didn't want to hear, and they couldn't shut you up.
She smiled, weary but warm.
You ever think it's strange? A billionaire and a waitress fighting the same fight? He looked at her. Not strange, just overdue. The night settled around them.
No headlines, no judgment, just the hum of an old jazz record Malik had queued up and the warmth of a small space filled with earned silence.
Tasha knew the road ahead was still full of battles. The vote next month, the whispers that would never fully die.
But she also knew that for the first time in years, she wasn't walking it alone.
And that, more than victory, felt like justice.
The morning of the board vote arrived like a storm without thunder. The skies were clear, but the air felt thick, like the city itself was holding its breath. Malik stood in front of the bathroom mirror, tying his tie with deliberate care, though his hands trembled just enough to betray his nerves.
In the adjoining room, Tasha zipped up a modest black dress.
Nothing flashy, clean lines, confident, the kind of outfit she imagined her mother might have worn if life had dealt her a different hand.
Jalen had been dropped off at school by a family friend.
He waved at them from the back seat, his backpack swinging with every step. Be brave, he'd said, quoting Tasha's own words back to her.
Like you always are.
She clutched that sentence like armor. In the car, neither of them spoke much.
The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was a silence of focus, of shared purpose.
Outside the windows, the city moved like normal people rushing, honking, dodging puddles. But inside, something sacred simmered between them.
When they arrived at Jordan MedTech, the lobby was fuller than usual.
Not with staff, but with watchers, journalists, employees, skeptics, and quiet supporters, all waiting to see what the fallout of the last few weeks would be.
A young receptionist approached them nervously.
Mr. Jordan, Miss Williams, the boardroom's ready.
But she hesitated. There's been something you should know. Malik leaned in. What happened? There's been a leak. Someone sent internal emails to the press about Evelyn's hush offer. About the board's intent to remove you before you even broke any rules. Tasha's stomach dropped. All of it? Yes, the receptionist nodded. And it's already trending.
Malik cursed under his breath, but Tasha oddly smiled.
Good. Let them see the whole truth.
The boardroom was a storm of whispers. Half the members were staring at their phones. The others sat rigid, their faces strained with damage control panic.
Leon Radcliffe entered last, his lips a tight, unreadable line.
We'll begin, he said curtly. As expected, the room fell into procedural order.
Legal counsel spoke. A compliance officer outlined the original concerns about Malik's involvement with Tasha. Someone recited policies about ethics and conflict of interest. Then Malik stood.
I stepped back, not because I was ashamed, but because I knew I had compromised something more valuable than policy.
I had allowed myself to feel. He paused, scanning the room.
But I do not regret saving that child. I do not regret standing beside his mother.
And I certainly do not regret showing the world that power must answer to humanity. Whispers swelled.
A few board members exchanged glances. One woman, Anita, who had stayed silent in prior meetings, nodded just once.
Then it was Tasha's turn. She walked to the front of the room, papers in hand, but she didn't look at them.
I was told I wasn't qualified to speak to this board, that I was too emotional, that I was a symbol who should be quiet.
But let me be clear, I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here because I lived what your policies ignored.
Her voice didn't shake. My son nearly died, not because of lack of medicine, but because no one believed me when I said he couldn't breathe, because I didn't look like someone important.
She took a breath. And Malik Jordan believed me, not because he's a savior, but because he remembered what it meant to be unseen. You could hear the air shift in the room. Realization settling in. This foundation is not charity. It's a correction. And if this board chooses silence today, then history will remember your decision louder than any headline. Silence. Leon cleared his throat. Let us vote. It took 15 minutes.
7 votes in favor, 5 against.
The Community Pulse Foundation was approved. Malik didn't smile. Neither did Tasha. Not yet. They just looked at each other. One long, solid look of confirmation. Outside, the press pounced. Miss Williams, is this a victory for single mothers? Mr. Jordan, are you returning to your position as CEO? Do you feel vindicated? Tasha stepped to the mic. This isn't about vindication. It's about validation. That people like me deserve to be heard before it's too late. She turned to Malik. He stepped forward. And yes, he said, I'm returning, but not as the man I was. I'm returning as the man this experience made me. They walked away hand in hand, not out of spectacle, but out of shared survival. Later that night, at Tasha's apartment, they celebrated with takeout Thai and sparkling cider. Jalen danced barefoot in the living room, wearing a cardboard crown he made in school. Tasha watched him, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. Malik noticed, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. What's wrong? He asked.
Nothing, she whispered.
It's just for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm holding the world together alone. He kissed the top of her head. You're not. Not anymore. Outside, the city glowed beneath a calm sky. No headlines, no noise, just the hum of a television, a child's laughter, and 2 people who had found something rare. Not just justice, but belonging. 3 weeks passed, and the world did what it always did. After a media firestorm, it moved on. The news cycle had chewed through the scandal, the redemption arc, the foundation launch, and spit it out for the next headline. Malik and Tasha knew better than to trust quiet. In their lives, silence was rarely peace. It was preparation.
The Community Pulse Foundation began quietly, starting with one mobile medical van parked near the corner of 63rd and Cottage Grove, just blocks from where Malik had once played ball as a kid.
The van bore no flashy logo, just the name Pulse, etched in clean, quiet script, and a simple tagline. Health belongs to everyone. Tasha stood in the passenger bay one morning watching a young woman cradle her toddler in line.
She handed her a warm drink, spoke gently, listened. Not as a founder, not as a spokesperson, just as a woman who knew what desperation looked like. Inside the van, a volunteer nurse tapped Malik's shoulder.
We've got a caseload oxygen. Child under 2 might need hospital transport.
Malik moved quickly, steady, focused. He wasn't there for photo ops. He was there to do the work. Back at HQ, they drafted plans to expand to 3 more cities: Detroit, Baltimore, Memphis. Investors were beginning to call, carefully, cautiously.
Tasha remained firm.
No strings, no press puppetry, and absolutely no Evelyn.
Still, Malik knew the old world wasn't done with him. It arrived in the form of a lawsuit.
Jordan Medtecha's former board members, those who had voted against the foundation, filed a civil suit alleging financial misconduct, claiming Malik had misused corporate assets to promote a personal agenda.
Tasha's name appeared in the filing, suggesting influence through emotional manipulation.
Tasha stared at the letter when it arrived by courier, her name in bold.
The word defendant underlined twice. Her first thought wasn't panic. It was fury.
Malik read over her shoulder, his jaw tightening. They know they're losing, he said.
This is desperation. Tasha folded the letter. It's a reminder that people like me aren't allowed to win without punishment.
He took her hand.
We fight.
She looked up at him, fierce.
We finish.
Their legal team assembled quickly, pro bono, diverse, sharp people who believed in the mission, not just the optics.
Malik refused to settle.
I won't pay for their comfort, he said.
I'd rather lose with the truth than win with a bribe. Tasha attended every briefing. She read every document. She asked hard questions and didn't flinch when the lawyers tried to talk down to her.
Malik often watched her in those moments, quietly proud, quietly stunned by her resilience. You were meant for this, he said once.
She smiled.
I was meant to survive. This is just extra. Still, the pressure weighed. Jalan started waking up at night again, restless, clinging. The noise, the whispers at school, the flashing headlines. He felt it even if he didn't understand. One night, Tasha found him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., sitting on the floor beside the fridge, clutching his bear.
Baby, what's wrong?
He looked up, tears bright in his eyes.
Are we in trouble again?
She knelt and pulled him into her arms.
No, sweetie. We're in a fight, but we're not alone.
And we're not losing.
His face softened. Promise? She kissed his forehead. Promise.
The day of the preliminary hearing arrived under gray skies.
Reporters lined the courthouse steps. Malik wore a dark gray suit.
Tasha wore the same navy blazer she had worn at the board meeting, the one that had felt borrowed once, but now fit like it was made for her. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. The judge, a stern black woman named Marlene Gooding, looked over her glasses and spoke with the cadence of someone who had buried patience decades ago. I will not entertain theatrics, she warned, and I will not tolerate the misuse of this court to pursue corporate vendettas masked as ethics complaints. The opposing counsel opened with flair, but Judge Gooding shut them down with a raised brow. When it was Tasha's turn to speak, she stood calmly. I didn't choose to become a symbol, but I won't run from it. If helping save my son's life and helping other parents avoid what I went through makes me a target, then so be it. But I won't apologize for loving my child, and I won't apologize for fighting. The room fell quiet. The judge tapped her gavel once.
Motion to dismiss the personal misconduct claim is granted. The rest will proceed to review.
And Mr. Jordan, she added, if I find 1 cent misallocated, I'll make you regret ever owning a calculator.
Malik gave a small smile. Understood, Your Honor.
Outside, they were mobbed again. This time, Tasha didn't run. She stepped up to the microphones.
This isn't about me. It never was. It's about a system that only listens when you scream. I screamed, and people heard me. Now I'll keep speaking so others don't have to. A journalist shouted, "Are you afraid?" Tasha paused. Then, strong, "Not anymore."
She turned, took Malik's hand, and walked away not just from the courthouse, but from the version of herself that had once been afraid of taking up space. Storms, she had learned, don't ask permission, but neither did she.
Not anymore. Spring arrived quietly in Chicago.
Not with fanfare, but in the subtle return of birdsong, and the way sunlight stretched just a little longer in the late afternoon.
On a warm April day, the city felt like it had exhaled. So had Tasha.
The Community Pulse Foundation had expanded into 2 more neighborhoods. The mobile units ran every day, staffed by volunteers, nurses, and local EMTs who had once felt powerless inside rigid systems. Now they served communities that had long been dismissed, offering checkups, emergency response, even wellness classes in borrowed church basements. At the heart of it all was Tasha. Not a figurehead, not a story, but a leader. She stood that morning in front of a ribbon-lined platform at the edge of the west side where a crowd had gathered for the unveiling of the foundation's first brick-and-mortar clinic.
A modest building painted bright yellow with a mural of neighborhood kids stretching across one side.
It wasn't flashy, but it was full of light. Malik adjusted Jalen's collar beside her, fussing like a dad who finally had permission to.
"Mommy," Jalen whispered. "Are you nervous?" Tasha smiled.
No, just full of. She looked out over the crowd.
Everything we've lived through.
As the music faded, Malik stepped up to the mic first. "When I started Jordan MedTech," he said, "I thought success was measured in numbers, profits, shares, but I was wrong. Success is a mother who doesn't have to beg for her child to be seen.
Success is someone like Tasha standing here today.
Not because she was rescued, but because she refused to stay silent."
The applause was real. Not obligatory, not polite, just honest. Then Tasha stepped up. She looked out at the crowd, neighbors, friends, even reporters, and took a breath. "I've told this story 100 times. How I screamed in a hospital. How no one listened until they did. But today isn't about that moment. Today is about everything after." She glanced at Jalen. He waved. "Today is about standing on ground we weren't supposed to reach. About turning pain into fuel. About making sure that no one, and no mother, no father, no child, has to choose between being heard and being whole." Her voice steadied. "This isn't the end of the story. It's just where the next chapter begins." When the ribbon was cut, children ran ahead, eager to see the inside. Families followed. Tasha stood at the edge of it all. Her heart full, her soul tired, but no longer heavy. That night, they gathered back at Malik's loft. Just a few close friends. Take out again, because some traditions stick. Jalen sat in the corner showing Malik's goddaughter how to build towers out of dominoes. Laughter filled the room like music. Tasha stood in the kitchen watching it all. Evelyn had resigned quietly weeks earlier. The lawsuit had been dismissed in full. Malik had formally stepped away from the day-to-day operations of Jordan MedTech, choosing instead to focus on public health outreach and social equity. They were building something, not just an organization, but a life. Malik joined her at the counter, handing her a glass of sparkling cider. "To survival," he said. Tasha clinked her glass to his. "To more than survival." He smiled. "To choosing to stay." She nodded. Every day. They watched the kids, the room, the small, beautiful life they had cobbled together from fear and fire. "I used to think love was something that happened in fairy tales," Tasha said softly, "something fragile, easy to lose." And now, she looked up at him. "Now I know love isn't about rescue. It's about witness. It's about who shows up and stays." He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the city lights flickered.
A breeze rustled the curtains. And inside, under soft laughter and quiet music, Tasha whispered the words she never thought she'd speak again. Not just to him, but to herself.
I'm home. The light stayed on.